Hey guys, Bombhard here. So for today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I heat treat my knives. So I've got a coil spring knife that I've been using for the other instructional videos in this kind of series. So heat treating is kind of it literally is a science, and I'm definitely not an expert at it. But the methods that I use are adequate, and they're what I have found to be the easiest way to go about doing it, especially if you're just getting into this. So with the coil spring knife that I have here, this is going to work just fine. So in the forge, of course, I've just got my hardwood charcoal. This is the lump charcoal, not the briquettes. But we're going to get the knife hot, get it up to temperature, which is to the point where it is not attracted by a magnet, and we'll do a test of that before we quench it. But what I would recommend using is oil. So you can use almost any kind of oil, but vegetable oil like corn oil is great to use. It's fairly inexpensive, and then there isn't going to be any poisonous chemicals being released by it when you burn it. So that's one big downside of using motor oil, is because the different toxic chemicals being released when you quench a knife in it. And I'm not a doctor or a scientist, and I don't really know what all that shit is, but I know you don't want to be breathing it. So first thing we got to do is get the knife up to temperature. So we'll get that in the charcoal here. We'll fire it up. We'll just cover the blade in charcoal there. And this is lump hardwood charcoal, not the briquettes. So I've got some corn oil here that I've been using. Corn oil, any vegetable oil, is great to use because not only is it cheap, but it's not dangerous or harmful when it burns. So and then also when you do the temper in the oven like I do, it just smells like somebody cooking. So as the knife gets hot, I'm going to leave the oil over the fire, because the oil you want to have hot about between 90 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. So I got a little thermometer here, and that'll help me tell what the temperature is. Because we don't want the oil too hot, we don't want it igniting. So this part of the knife is up to temperature, but the back half wasn't. Took it out a little early. Especially with the edge being as thin as it is, there's a risk of melting it if you leave it too long. So I'd rather err on the side of caution. It's pretty warm already now, so this shouldn't be much longer. Alright, there we go. That's looking good. Perfect. You really only need the edge hard. This is what's called an edge quench. You could probably submerge the whole thing, but having the back of the blade, but having the spine of the knife be a little softer is going to give it overall toughness if you wanted to, you know, hard use it like baton with it or so on and so forth. So it should be good to go. Okay, so at this point I've checked it for straightness, and it doesn't appear that it's warped at all. So with these coil springs, you can get some memory in the steel, and it can want to bend and stuff like that. I've had issues with that in the past. And we can also check the edge hardness. And you can see how the file kind of skates. So especially from working this with the file earlier, you know, we know that a file in that softened condition was able to bite in and remove steel, and this is not happening. Yep, so that's successfully hardened. So next step is going to be to temper it. So right now the edge is about as hard as it's ever going to be, as hard as the steel will permit, because we've cooled it rapidly. So right now if we were to put an edge on it, it would be very brittle and would probably chip out very easily. So we're going to temper it, which will soften the blade to a point where it'll still hold a good edge, but it'll be a more durable and a more tough edge. So for tempering, I just use the kitchen oven. So this is a mixture of deer tallow, woodchuck tallow, bacon grease, and beef tallow. So if you want a more historically accurate method of quenching knives, rendered animal fat is a neat way to go. So if we test these knives that I quenched in the tallow, you can tell these are hard as well. They might even be a little bit harder. On this one, take a close look at this one. Look at that. That's just from the quench. That little nick. I had that steel so thin because I had kind of the edge bevel going. That just chipped off in the quench. That's how hard it got in the tallow. So that sucks, but it's kind of neat to look at that. So hopefully I'll be able to temper that and then grind that out in the final sharpening. So I polished up the edge bevel a little bit on this knife just so that we'd be able to see the color change on the steel. And so the oven has been preheated to 375 degrees. So anywhere between 375 and about 450 is where you want it to be. And I'll put them in and leave them there for about an hour and a half. So that gives it enough time to get up to temperature, and then stay at that temperature for at least an hour. So you do that a total of 3 times. So I'll leave it in an hour, take it out, let it cool down to room temperature, put it back in. So that's called the triple temper. And I'm getting all that information from Wayne Goddard's book, The $50 Knife Shop. Okay, so here's a look at it after the first cycle. We got that kind of golden straw color going on, a little bit of purple. The oven was more at like about 400 degrees, so I toned it back just a little bit. Alright, here's what it looks like after that third heat treatment. You can see we maintained that straw color, but there is still more purple and just a hint of blue creeping in there, which I'm not really a big fan of. The blue kind of tells you that it's getting too soft, but the purple is okay. The straw is really what you're going for, but obviously I thought that this was sufficient because I mounted a handle on it, so this is kind of a sneak preview to the handle making portion of this instructional coil spring video. But hopefully this video was helpful for you guys out there who are thinking about getting into knife making. You want to make your own knife, but you're maybe a little turned off by the heat treatment or not knowing how to do that. Don't think that you have to get this sent out and have it professionally heat treated. You can do it right here at home. If you got an oven, you can temper your knives. You do want to temper your knives because if you only quench it, chances are it will be too hard and the edge will be brittle and it'll chip out under any sort of hard use. So tempering it kind of brings some softness back, and it really makes the knife edge tough enough to take and hold a good edge. So the temper is a very important process of knife making. So that's something that you can just do at home if you've got an oven. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this quick little video. Thanks for watching, and until next time, be more Viking.